Welcome to the 6th episode of Dispatches from the Dugout. We're going to talk about the 1960s, the last decade in which the British Army used the Vickers machine gun. Lots of other service to cover at some point, but we're going to cover the Vickers as it was sort of competing with the GPMG and looking at its last throws, really. Yeah. Some of its last action as well. We're going to be talking about obviously the small arms that are in service at the same time, what's its contemporaries at this period, looking at a few items, some very late items in the collection, and discussing the what if it just carried on, how would it have changed?
Yeah.
It's there, it's unchanged from the 50s, I think is probably key to say. But a lot of the equipment...
And relatively unchanged from the 40s.
Relatively unchanged from the 40s as well, yeah. But what is changing is the equipment of the British Army soldier. It looks a lot more modern, perhaps not by today's standards, but this is the first time we haven't seen wool serge since across the whole episode series. And we've gone to the perhaps very recognisable for anybody in the cadets all the way up until the early 2000s, the 1958 pot and webbing as well. So, yeah, quite a different piece. I wouldn't say looks as we'd expect the Cold War army to look.
Yeah.
If you like what you're watching and you want to see more, leave a comment on YouTube and we'll give one person from those comments each episode a month's free subscription to Patreon, where you can access all of our archive and the firing videos that go alongside this series. We'll also, because we don't want to leave you out, any patrons that leave comments on the Patreon site for that video, we are going to select one from across the series and send you a copy, wherever you are, one copy of the Pride of the MGs book that we retail. Obviously, terms and conditions will apply, so please have a read of those before you enter any of those competitions. So the small arms of the 1960s see us very much in the modern day, really, and a lot of very recognisable firearms and wider weapons that we would recognise at the moment. And the developments of the AK series, the Type 56 here is just in service everywhere around the world that are Warsaw Pact influenced. Yeah. And communist influenced, actually, because the politics around some of these are that they don't just sell you the firearms like all the West countries would. They will set you up the factory. They will set you up the political, the communist system that links to these firearms and your tanks, your T-34s, your, up to your T-72s. That's not just about the arms trade. That's about...
It's a package.
It's a whole package of politics down to small arms. And that's not what we're looking at. But this is the period in which the Vickers is replaced, really. And it's replaced by the GPMG and the L7 FN mag, so complementing the SLRs and stuff that we're seeing. The L7 that's there, it comes into service in both the light role, as you see it there, and also the sustained fire role as well. Originally, that was going to be called the medium machine gun role. So the 1960 pamphlet, which is one of the archive items that we have through Patreon, refers to it as an MMG. And then the 1962 pamphlet, so 60 pamphlet is provisional. 62 is the first one in service. That says SFMG, so sustained fire machine gun. At that point, we've gone away from this medium machine gun role, because I think, rightly so, they've turned around and said, wait a minute, it's not a medium machine gun. Medium machine guns are water cooled and can keep going and keep going. And this is not what that.
So this is a light machine gun and a sustained fire role.
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to how the Germans were using the universal machine gun concept. It's about fared all the same. Still in service with the British, still in service, now sort of in service with the Americans as the M240 as well, with some minor changes, but around the world. And the other element of that is what we're doing with Bren guns. So this is a 7.62mm Bren. What's interesting about this particular example is it is not a converted one. So the British take their 303 Brens and convert those for 7.62. This is actually made as 7.62.
This is manufactured as that weapon, right?
By the Indians. So that was made in India, and I can't quite remember the date on it. It's 1969.
Yeah.
So much later than the British had enough Bren guns. That's 1969. It's made to fire 7.62, and again we fired that one on a number of occasions, and still in service right up to I believe 2002 with the British Army.
Right.
And certainly some of the British Army officers and senior staff that I've spoken to over the years remember using those as their anti-aircraft light machine gun on tops of trucks.
So again, another perfect example of if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
It's been rechambered and it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so 7.62 in everything at that point. And those two firearms are what is the automatic firepower, because we've gone away from automatic in the individual hands of the soldier. The section firearms are the automatic firepower. And they swap between what is the section every few years, whether your section firearm is going to be your GPMG or your LMG. So this is very much referred to just purely as the LMG at that point as well. And also what we're seeing coming in is lots more sort of pushed down personal firepower. So the firearm that we've got in front of us, well, arguably not, but the tube that we have in front of us is actually a later designed or a later variant of the 66mm light anti-armor weapon. Right. This is a LASM. This is a light anti-structural material version of it. So it's an anti-armor weapon brought in the 60s, and you certainly see these. The British Army adopted it at the end of the 60s into the early 70s to replace the 3.5-inch rocket launchers within the sections, but going alongside the 84mm Carl Gustaf. So we've got this whole. Actually, the 60s is the preparations proper for the Cold War. Rearmament in the 50s. All the trials and stuff, something then really knuckle down and do it in the 1960s as the Vickers comes out of service. So all of this stuff is in service alongside the Vickers.
Yes.
Because we've got that transitional period of 1962, it comes in proper, up to 1968. Will we see those things together in photos? I don't know. But it certainly, they were in service at the same time. So for all of our patrons, we're going to take some of these to the range, show you how they work. YouTube, we're going to head back to the dugout.
So I've come back over to the table to have a look at our K-guns, because they're way too heavy to put on our wicker basket. So the K-gun, originally an aircraft gun, developed as an aircraft gun. Made famous by the SAS during the Second World War. And it's at this point in the 1960s, alongside the Mark I Vickers, the Vickers Ks are phased out, sort of roughly at the same time. At this point in the 60s, they're still being used by river patrol boats and by the SAS still on their Land Rovers, up until the point that the Series 2A Pink Panther comes in, where they are replaced by the GPMG. And I think it's just amazing that you've got a weapon, again, not as long as the Mark I in service, but still in service in the 60s. And now we're going to go back to the dugout, where I will magically reappear.
So the collection pieces we've got, other than the Ks there, are just a couple of small pieces, really.
Yeah.
You've got one of the books from the vast library that we have.
Yeah, we do. We have an enormous library, which is fantastic. And this is such a brilliant snapshot from 1968 because it lists everything that the British Army had in its arsenal at that time. And what's fantastic is that the Vickers is still there, alongside. We've got self-propelled recoilless anti-tank rifles. We've got nuclear weapons. We've got like 432 armoured personnel carriers are coming in here, and it's an amazing, as I say, it's an amazing snapshot when you think that this weapon has been with the British Army for such a long time, and this book is extolling the virtues of all this brand new equipment that's coming in. That's never, we've never seen the likes of it before, but yet we've still got the Vickers in there. It's great.
It is great. And I think those that are familiar with armour and things as well will know that the 432 is still in service as Boxer.
Yeah.
So that's actually a tangible piece back to then. There'll be a few other bits as well.
Yeah.
But that book's just like you say, that great snapshot. I think
it's amazing.
Started this series by saying, Edwardian to nuclear age, and that's that end piece really. There's very few other items with the longevity that served at that point. There are now, and we've talked about some of the other firearms that will have had as long, if not longer, service.
Absolutely, yeah.
GPMG is coming up for 60 years.
Right.
So it's had its 60 years now, 2022. It's had its 60 years.
Yeah.
It beats the Vickers. But at that point, with the conflicts that were going on, for that gun to last so long into that period is really interesting.
And the GPMG is a much more modern weapons platform, isn't it? Really, considering it's a bipod. It's easily carryable by one person. It's disintegrating link, and so on and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Whereas this, was developed in a different era.
Yeah,
it's incredible, really.
Yeah. So you're quite right. I think we'll pick up on some of those points about how those modern elements, how they can link to it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've picked up is a slide rule. So in the 30s episode, we talked about the development of indirect fire and had that plotter.
Yeah.
This is the other piece that goes with that, the Mark IV slide rule. Mark 1, 2, 3, and it do exist, and we've got those in the collection. But this is the Mark IV. This is the last one, and this covers the Mark 8Z ammunition as well. But what's remarkable about this particular piece is the date it was made is 1967. So the Vickers has been out of service with most first-line units at that point. The regular army dropped it. The doctrine is saying we're not using indirect fire. But for some reason, the slide rule, it's like somebody left an order open and somebody hadn't paid their bill, or there was a contractor that needed, or BEN Company Limited just needed that extra few quid from the government. And what makes it stand out as modern is the orange nylon string. The pouch it came in this is the pouch it came in. It's a 1941 dated pouch. Clearly, they had plenty of those lying around. We've got quite a few for sale on our shop still from new old stock stuff. But the sellotape, things like that. I think this is the latest item in the collection that. For the purely for the Vickers. Yeah. We've got a few pieces that were transitional, sort of aiming lamps, which were Vickers and GPMG.
Is this from the British Army?
Yep. Yeah, this is definitely the British Army.
It wasn't a contract for overseas.
No, the options it could have been produced for the British, perhaps the Sultan of Oman's armed forces, because of the loan service officers and stuff that we had there and that training. It could have been one of those relationships. But it's not given the numbers that would have been in service as well. Yeah. It's really unusual to see stuff this late. So, it's outside of it, definitely international stuff. It's nice. The latest piece that we've got.
Yeah.
So there we are. We've been at the range. We've fired so many different firearms over the course of this series. And come back to the Vickers, really. Here we are in the late 1960s, declared obsolete. But I think one of the things that I'd like to talk about in this what if segment is, what if it just carried on?
Yeah.
Where would it have gone? Where would this Mark I Vickers be if it had carried on even to today? What's your thoughts?
You've got improvements in materials now. Lightweight, super strong.
Plastic materials?
Plastics, 3D printed.
Yeah. I think, we know the South Africans did some of this stuff into the 80s. Yeah. So they were the last people to use the Vickers. And they had plastic grips. They had, I think that's it, but they did start to develop plastic ammunition boxes for the Vickers. I remember I bought this for 99p off of eBay because it was advertised as a plastic ammunition box and there was no scale in the photo. So I thought it's not. I'll take a punt, thinking I might have this tiny Action Man thing turn up, and it didn't. But they did the disintegrating link for 7.62mm ammunition.
Right.
So they were the only people to do that. They upgraded it to 7.62, so a modern caliber, still in service. And they developed these little, nylon ammunition boxes. And this one's actually dated 1984. So, late in service. So they did do some of that modern materials. And like I say, they did the plastic hand grips as well.
Yeah.
And going back to say, over its lifespan, the Vickers increased in weight significantly, didn't it?
Yeah.
So from the early light guns, which were how many?
28 pounds.
28 pounds.
Yeah.
To this one,
35, 37.
Right.
Yeah, this is a very late. This is a July 45 gun, actually. It's Australian made, so they'd stopped all lightning. They've got big Aussies carrying them. They don't need to worry about it too much. They've gone to cast metals, gun metal, that has this final bit of machining. So it is bar some of the exception pieces, it is the heaviest they got. And I think, let's say, if we're in peacetime developing these guns and we've got modern manufacturing, would we go back to that very lightened gun?
Yeah.
And then the cooling side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So water, there are now chemical substances, not that I can name, but that do
antifreeze.
do a much, much better job of cooling than just 7.5 pints of water.
So therefore, would it need to be a metal jacket? Could it be a carbon fibre jacket? Is that heat resistant enough?
I don't know. I think that'd be one of the things. And actually, does it need to be this big? Because your options with those super cooling liquids are, do you go, well, actually, we know this is about 5,000 rounds before it boils up and empties. Mm-hmm. It's about 1,000 rounds before it boils, but about 5,000 before it would empty. So do you say, right, 5,000 rounds is our requirement, and therefore super cooling material, you can reduce the size? Or do you say, actually, we just don't want to change water. So the super cooling, maybe it doubles the effect. We get 10,000 rounds before it empties. So there's a couple of options that you play with there in trialing that, which is quite interesting. It depends what your requirement is. Is it to lighten the gun or it's improve its efficiency?
Yeah.
And then sighting, Tom, you've got in your hand a Picatinny rail.
Picatinny rail. I mean, which quite nicely fits there.
It would wobble.
Yeah, exactly.
But say modernising, fitting it somewhere else, fitting it on top of here, so you can put loads of different sights. And then quite simply, this is a dovetail adapter from a GPMG. And what this does is allows you to put a SUSAT sight from the SA80 onto a GPMG or whatever, other way around. And I'm going to annoy myself now. So, but that is almost, not quite, almost the right size to fit in the dial sight bracket. So it doesn't quite fit. But I think it needs a shim. That's all it needs. Yeah. Or it needs a different cast bracket. So I think that's something for us to play with at some point and see how that works.
And then at the other end, we've seen there's been footage come out of Ukraine of Maxims with suppressors.
Yeah, there is.
So, that's an interesting.
They're just trying to stop giving their position away in the same way, and obviously noise is one of those characteristics of the machine gun that is detrimental. So suppressors maybe as a better flash eliminator as well. So I think you've got all that modern stuff that can happen at the muzzle end for sure. And then one thing that sort of sprung to mind for me is how easy these things are to clean and how to use. And there's a lot of leaf springs inside this rather than coil springs. Coil springs are stronger or more easily replaceable, more standard items. So you can get into the mechanics of how you'd modernise this. Now the Czechs did that in the 30s. Didn't go very far. And we don't see any of that across the collections, but we do, they did put coil springs in a lot more in those components as well. So there's a few options, and a couple of them they've done, and one we have in the collection is a light and tripod as well. And that Mark V tripod that gives it a bit more instability.
Well, could you go back? I mean, in the First World War, we saw the Sangster mount, didn't we?
Yeah.
The lighter tripod that fastens to the jacket. So you could, if you're lightening the gun, could you go to a bipod? Could you start using a bipod?
We've got the monopod, haven't we, fitted to one of the guns in the collection that was a armoured fighting vehicle, dismounted thing.
Yep.
And then 52nd Lowland used it, that quirky unit that we talk about now and again.
Yeah.
But you've got no shoulder stock, so do you have to start to think about that?
Yeah. Well, you're lightening the weapon, aren't you? So therefore, you're going to be able to use it in a different way to having this large tripod. And then does it warrant some sort of carrying handle? Something like on the GPMG, that's a fold-down carrying handle, so you can carry it easier with it being lighter.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes back to, do you still want a medium machine gun in that role? And we've seen, as you mentioned, Ukraine, the M1910 Maxim, the PM1910 Maxim, which we fired at the start of the series as well, is what they're using over there. So there's still a requirement, and whether that requirement is we just need to use as many old weapons and as many firearms as we have available, or is there truly a medium machine gun requirement? So going from that point, there's plenty of options, and I think as we move forward, we'll perhaps explore some of those and do some of the things and see how they work. So if you've got any comments, any questions, any suggestions on how you'd modernise the Vickers, then please do get in touch with us on Discord, Patreon, those sort of usual routes, and come and we'll see whether we can put some of those into action. So thanks for watching so far, and thanks for all your questions that have come in. Tom, have we got any more that relate to this period?
We do actually, yeah. So we've got one from Nikki D here. It says, when was the last combat use of the Vickers, and who had it in service last?
So British is 60s. Oh, I'm going to get it wrong. I know 64. I think it's the Radfan with 3rd Battalion Parachute Regiment.
Right.
Again, working alongside Sultan of Oman's armed forces, some of the Middle Eastern armed forces there. And that period where they're using the Vickers alongside people that are actually going to keep it in service that bit longer. Yeah. But it's still theirs. It's the Royal Marines carry on using it for a bit longer, and we've constrained this scope to the British Army service, but the Royal Marines are using it into the 70s.
Right.
Then around the world, we talked about the Vickers being bought around the world in an earlier episode with those commercial guns. The British Army surplus lots after the Second World War as well. And when they go out of service, I haven't talked about this, so allow me for the rabbit hole, but when they go out of service, the replacement documents for the GPMG say we only need 800. So if you think about those tens of thousands of these that have been produced over the years, when it goes out of service in 1960, 62, and we're looking for GPMG to replace it, we just need 800. So the numbers have dramatically reduced. And many of those will have been stripped and scrapped. Others were being sold off. So we have the last known conventional army to use them is South Africa. Right. We know that India carried on using them in reserve forces as well, but had largely gone to other weapons types at that point. So South Africa right up until 1988.
Wow.
So really late.
So a good 20 years after the British Army have disbanded it. Okay, right.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this is our opportunity to say we'd like your questions in the future. Thank you very much for watching all of these 6 episodes. Hopefully they've given you a really interesting arc of the Vickers in service over its life.
Hopefully, yeah.
I think we've enjoyed the conversation as much as possible. Thank you to Adam for filming this and putting it together for us as well. It's not just, clearly we can't leap up and press cameras and bits and pieces. So it's much more of a team effort. The wider association is supportive of this as well. And if you'd like to be involved in that, then comment, get in touch. We're filming these so that actually they go out and this episode goes out in the run up to the We Have Ways Festival. So thanks for those that have come along and spoken to us at the We Have Ways Festival, or perhaps those that we've said, go away and watch these videos and you'll learn more and stop asking silly questions. Or we've already answered those silly questions. They're on YouTube or Patreon, where this is going to be hosted most of the time. So please engage with us. That Patreon site is what helps support the everyday running costs of the association. And you can join that from just £3 a month. And we think that the archive that we've got there is the most accessed military history archive through the National Archives. So we're a third-party entity. We don't get any other funding. So go on there and support that, and you'll get to see some of the additional content that relates to this series as well. So hopefully you'll be engaged enough to support us to do a future series where there are loads of other topics to cover. We've run out of decades though, so I'm not really sure what the structure is. If you've got any ideas, let us know. Anything you've seen, so just head over to Patreon, engage with us, talk to us, and we look forward to hearing from you.